Well, good morning. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? I want to welcome everyone. Welcome all the new people, both on YouTube and on Patreon. It's good to have you. I want to start off by kind of sending out a personal message to someone. I had a very special order come in yesterday. Went and went past the post office, sent out some books, and picked up new orders. And if you're wondering what you're talking about, I'll tell you about that later. Well, it's for my books. and when I got home, I opened them up, and there was one in there that was very special. I won't give the name of the person, but this is to you because I have kind of a special message to you. It was from a woman who had ordered a set of my books, autographed set of my books. And she said that she wanted them to read to her mother who's in hospice. And she thought that her mother would enjoy hearing a bit of reality. And her mom's going through reality now, right? But I was very touched by that, and I thought that the idea that somebody would want to read my books to their mother at this particular time it just floored me. And I can't tell you what it meant to me, but I want to say to you, usually I just got back. I went up first thing this morning and put those in the mail and to the post office. And usually I send them media rate because they're books, which is cheaper, but it takes longer. And in this case, I just felt that time was important. And so I sent them at a higher rate. It should get there to you faster. They say it'll get there to you by Friday. Sometimes it gets there sooner. We'll just hope and see. But I want to tell you that I hope these books do bring enjoyment to your mother, and that you and your mother are in my thoughts and prayers. And so that's what I wanted to say. Okay, now what we're going to get into today is the idea that a total collapse. Well, I hesitate to say that it would be good or necessary, but that's pretty much what it comes down to. I've had a number of people over the last couple of years, and I've seen it in the comments, that the only thing that can turn this world around, or this country around, or whatever, however big a net you want to throw, would be a total collapse. Now, what they're referring to is the kind of collapse that are in my books. And so I want to address that. I want to preface it with the thought that I am fully aware of the horrible suffering that would come about as a result of that collapse. Okay, because when I've mentioned this before, I get people coming on and saying, but don't you realize that, how many people would suffer and this and that and everything, all the other things. And I say, don't you realize that I've written 5 books on it? Yes, I realize the suffering. I write about some of the suffering. I don't get into too gruesome or graphic, although I cover cannibalism, and I cover slavery, and I cover death of innocents, and I cover to the point to where, I think it is informational as opposed to gratuitous, because I like my books to be able to be written or read by younger people too, and so I won't go into gratuitous violence or suffering. But yes, I do realize those things. And so when I thought, I had just had somebody ask me about that the other day, and I said, you know what, I meant to make a video on that, and I never did, so this is it. We know the situation in our country and in our world, and it seems to be crumbling all around us. what is the solution? I think most of us don't feel that there is a solution, even though on the other channel, American Reversion, I talk about the importance of continuing the fight, doing what we can to either stop what's going on, turn it around, you know, American Reversion, taking things back the way it used to be. But my hope may be that, but do I really think that's possible? And I have to admit that no, I don't think that's possible. And my efforts towards a reversion, like I talk about, is more to soften the landing for many of us and to prepare a way for those of us who feel a certain way to, you know, find a way out of that into something better, something more aligned with what we would want, right? So that's it. So realize that I am fully aware of the suffering that would happen. I mean, the federal EMP administrator, their report, and I'll read it out of here. This is in the my second book, The Revival. I put right down here. If a Carrington class, and I won't read the whole thing, struck the Earth today, it would destroy all electric grids and electronic components worldwide. We would immediately be back in a world without electricity. A nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, would have the same effect in the targeted area. In either case, the EMP Commission estimates that 90% of those in affected areas would be dead within 1 year from starvation, disease, accidents, and the violence that accompanies societal collapse. Okay, that's what I put in the preface of my second book. So yes, I'm fully aware of the suffering and the horrors that would happen. However, I am also a big believer that for those who are truly prepared, and some might go into the I won't go into the religious aspect here, but I'll simply say those who are called to be prepared and will follow that call, that there is a great chance of coming out the other side of that as part of the 10% who survive, and a smaller percent of those who, according to their degree of preparation, will be able to establish a community, a society that is far superior, perhaps not technologically, but morally, mentally, and physically than the one that we live in today. Okay? Let me take a sip. It's going to get up here, and then I'm going to read something from the first book, and then we'll talk about it. It's going to get up to close to 100 today, and they'll say that I'll feel like it's 104. So I'm not drinking coffee today. I'm drinking iced tea, sweet tea. You know, I knew that Kansas had finally become civilized when we finally got sweet tea up here. And I know you all down south go, you mean finally got? Well, it was probably 10 years ago or something like that. But I couldn't believe it. You couldn't get sweet tea north of Springfield, Missouri for a long time. Maybe 20 years. So that really added to the quality of my life. I had somebody leave a comment. This is just an aside before we get to the collapse of the world. Had somebody leave a comment yesterday that they couldn't stand me drinking my coffee on a video. So even though I'm drinking, I solved his problem. He won't have to watch any longer. I don't put up with the rudeness. Because we have nice folks here, and it's not just me. I don't want other people. I banned another one, actually, who I came across, and had left kind of a snarky response to one of our commenters' comments, and I don't allow that. If you come on here, you ought to be able to know that you can participate and leave your positive comments, and you're going to be treated with respect. And anybody who doesn't treat you with respect gets the same boot they get if they don't treat me with respect, okay? So for the rest of you all, I know you're nice people. If you're new here, welcome, and you're going to have a nice time here because you're nice. I want to read a section here from the foreword. This is by John Middleton. The book is by me, but the foreword is by John Middleton. And It's a foreword in my first book, The Reversion, and it kind of speaks to what I was talking about. And I'll pick it up. I'm going to read about 3 paragraphs, but I think you'll see the and part of it's going to be for those of you who haven't read the books, and in case you're thinking about it. And as this isn't the beginning of the foreword, I'll pick it up about midway through. He says, one of the copy editors with whom I am acquainted said that the reversion makes you laugh, cry, realize what is truly important, laugh and cry some more, and finally realize how thankful you should be for what you have. And that does not necessarily mean the creature comforts of today's world. Another, an experienced prepper and disaster preparedness instructor, said he learned something new in almost every page. And a third said that it had drastically changed how he thought about preparedness, referring to the book. Those are all true and important, but what truly sets it apart is something more, or actually several somethings more. The reversion does not follow the survival learning curve of the unprepared, and this kind of goes back to my review of The Road that I put up yesterday. That was a story about a man who was unprepared, and the challenges that they face. And I said at the time that The Road itself, and I believe that I had started writing the book before the movie came out, but I had read the book of The Road when it came out in 2006. And it was one of the things that I kept in mind while I started writing The Reversion. Excuse me. That I wanted to, so many of the post-apocalyptic books were just so dark and just so grim, and just, all about people aren't prepared and the trials and tribulations they go through because they're not. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to write one showing the possibilities of preparedness, of true preparedness. We talk about preparedness, right? But so much of the apocalyptic stuff or post-apocalyptic stuff is about people who weren't prepared. It's about suffering and overcoming, in some ways, to be honest, fairly unrealistic ways. But so I wanted to write a book that said, look, when you're truly prepared, according to the principles of integrative preparedness that I won't go into right now, your life doesn't have to suck. Let me put it that way, okay? You can set yourself up for a continual quality life, okay? So I'll begin again that second one. The reversion does not follow the survival learning curve of the unprepared or minimally prepared, as so many excellent books have already done so well. Rather, it is the story of a man who was prepared, and of how his preparation and foresight provided not only a safe haven for him and his family, but a restart point for those who come together to survive the collapse of the world around them. As such, it is an unbelievably positive book about an unbelievably negative circumstance. As such, and carries within it the lessons of preparedness and survival that every person should strive to learn. And he picked it up. That's exactly what I was trying to do in this. Tightly woven into the story are threads of history, morality, politics, economics, philosophy, and comparative justice, the kind America was founded on, the kind they had devolved to under the weight of an increasingly liberal and socialist society, and the kind that might reestablish a society reflective of America's original ideals. As these threads are woven into the fabric of the larger story of survival, the realization emerges that a great catastrophe enabled the return of what makes us as human beings truly happy and fulfilled, and that perhaps only a great catastrophe could. Now, I found that very interesting, that John included that in his foreword, because it's been reflected in so many comments that people have made to me. Would a collapse be horrible? Yeah, for 90% of the people, the MP Commission says it's going to result in death. And I have no reason to doubt their figures. I'm not sure how they came up with their figures, but hey, if you're going to use your imagination, I won't quibble with it. I'll say that. It's probably going to be higher in the cities and somewhat lower in the outer areas, but that's not a guarantee either, because large groups, you know, can be going through, as you read in my later books, large groups that come together and raid and just lay waste to the outer areas, the small towns, the you know, rural areas. There's no guarantee that that they're going to be safer. But the point is here, and I'll pick up on something else that he said too, that he calls the books unbelievably positive as they address an unbelievably negative situation. And that's right. That's what preparedness is all about. Being positive. Not about, oh, I want to reduce my suffering. See, although I know that, I mean, yeah, to an extent you want to reduce your suffering, of course. But that's not enough. That's not what I prepare for, and it's not what you should prepare for. Not just to reduce suffering, but to enhance quality and value of life. In our particular, according to integrative preparedness principles, we do things that not only prepare for the future, but improve the quality of our lives today. That's the subject for another video. But the question here is a collapse necessary to return our country, the world, humanity, whatever you want to say, back to a restart point that would enable us to recreate life according to the ideals of proper principles. Now, among those 90%, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't at all aligned with us on our principles, right? And they may survive to a greater degree, greater extent, greater percentage than the nice people, because they're mean, they're used to violence, they're used, you know, they're all sorts of things. I mean, a collapsed world would be their environment. But I think that it's not good to stop at that point and say, well, it's just going to be a Mad Max world, and we all just going to have to turn into animals and do it. And that's not what I think at all. If you go back and you study, and some of you have, when our first waves came over from Europe, you know, the Pilgrims and other groups, they did not come to a friendly, inviting place, and yet from that, and they were outnumbered. They fought against, you know, everything in the world. They fought against certain Indian elements, and I call them Indians. If anybody just went, oh my gosh, he just said Indian, well, the Indians that I know call themselves Indians, not Native Americans. So there we learned something, didn't we? They fought against some. They made friends with some. They fought against other Indians. They fought against the elements. They had a hard time. A lot of them died. A lot of them, you know, died of starvation, exposure, disease, all sorts of things. And yet from that, they built what we have in America today. Now, what they built up was, you know, you can say, if you follow our history, it goes in hills and valleys, you know, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, and within all the good there's some bad, and within all the bad there's some good. But humans have a way of when how should I say this? The good often find the reserves to overcome the animalistic attack modes of the evil, shall we say that? Because the evil are not necessarily stronger than the good. They're just different, right? And when the good folks finally get to the point that say, you know what, we need to be able to take care of this stuff, then usually they overcome. Now, we're up against, and usually I don't talk to this extent on this channel. This is more for American Reversion. We are up against evil right now. And we're in a fight for it. Through technology and other things, I think that it's going to be a very difficult fight to win, and because of the nature of man, the greed, the powers have shifted to where the normal person has very little influence on what happens in the greater world around him. You can always determine what happens in your life to a great extent. But our impact on the world gets less and less. So to this extent, is a collapse. Would a collapse be good, and would it be necessary? With full understanding of the suffering and the horrors that would accompany a collapse of this kind, I think that it's maybe, and I can't say it unequivocally, but I will side, and I want to know your all's opinions too. I will side with those who say they believe it's the only way we take things back to the standard ideals that helped us to build this country, that helped us to build a family, and that is, self-reliance, courage, faithfulness, a belief in and a following of God, and community and coming together. That's my opinion. Do I think that it would? So I'll put it this way: do I think that it would be horrible if there were a collapse? I think that it would be horrible physically. Do I think that it would be horrible spiritually? No. Do I think that it would be horrible? Well, I'll just leave it at that. And because really what I want, so I've said my piece, and what I really wanted to do was to throw this out there for your all's discussion and see what you all think about it. And of course, how horrible it would be depends entirely on how prepared somebody is. And that just doesn't mean how many beans they have in their basement. It means all of the things that we've talked about. Okay. And I talk about pretty much all of them. And I know that there will be some people come on here and throw out, hypotheticals. Yeah, but what about this? What about this? What about that? What about this? And don't you realize this and that? And I will say to you what I've said before. I've never been asked a question, except for Mike out his old settlers days. And that really didn't have to do with any of this. I've never been asked a question that I haven't already answered in full and in detail in these books. This is the Stonemont series. The first one is the reversion, then the revival, the renewal, an appeal to heaven, and the blessings of freedom. And yes, I'm going in a minute, well, in a little bit. I'm working on the sixth one. And you can get these. You can get these either through Amazon. The links are down here. Amazon in paperback or in Kindle. Or you can get signed copies, autographed copies from me. And the way to do that is down there too. If you get them from me, they take a little longer because I got to wait for. I do have some books in stock right now, but I've got to, go up to the post office and come back, sign them, get them ready for shipping, and then I send them media rate, which is slower, except for the one that I sent our very special person that I talked about earlier today. So that's how you can get those. I'll be shooting one in a minute for a Patreon, and it's gonna be I'm gonna be answering a question that one of our patrons asked me about lessons that I learned dealing with, and it's about how you act, how you carry yourself, dealing with threatening environments, what I learned from my days undercover, and then I'm going to do a special one, I think, for the Stonemont level people. We just have 2 levels over there on Patreon. We have the normal level, it's $1 a month. Then we have a Stonemont level, which is $5 a month, that allows people to directly ask me, email me, or message me questions, and I'll get back to them either in a video or in an email or a message, however they prefer. But at that Stonemont level, in addition to them being able to talk to me, you know, directly, I'm going to put up a little something special. I think I'll try to get to it today. If not today, then tomorrow. About the time that I got thrown in jail wearing a pink t-shirt. And that was interesting. Like so many things. Interesting at the time, funny story later, right? Now, you all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Let me know your opinion on these things. What do you think about a collapse? And it doesn't matter whether you are ready for it. I mean, if you think it would be you know, whatever you think, let this be, you know, a kind of a, you know, a recharge for you to start getting more prepared, because it does say it is guaranteed, and if you don't know, if you don't understand why it's guaranteed, the scientists tell us it is, and scientists that I trust a little bit more than those that are telling us that, you know, global warming, and I mean, it's warm, right? But so many of the things that they tell us. Okay, let it go at that. Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So do your best preparing. Let me know your comments down below. We'll have a good discussion. And again, welcome to everybody who's new. If you'd like to join us on Patreon, that link is also down there, some in the information box and in a pinned comment. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.